Thank you to everyone that's joined the call. Thanks for giving up some of your time this evening to hear about this exciting scheme that we are bringing to you now in Sri Lanka. So I'm actually speaking to you from the Institute here in Colombo. So it's a pleasure to be in Sri Lanka. I've been here for about 3 or 4 days now. I've lost track of the days actually, because it's been quite a busy week for me, meeting lots and lots of different stakeholders this week. So many employers, many students, some members of ICAEW and CA Sri Lanka as well. So it's been a very, very busy week, but it's an absolute pleasure to be here in Sri Lanka. So in fact, you'll see Kamidu as well, who's joined us from London. So me and Kamidu seem to have done a complete country swap. He's there in London and I'm here in Sri Lanka, but it's great to be here. So just to give you an intro into me really quickly. So my name is Dan Westley. I have been working at ICAEW for just over 3 years now. Sorry, just over 2 years now, I should say. And you know, most of my time working for ICAEW has been quite challenging, just purely because of the pandemic situation that we found ourselves in. So we actually went into lockdown 4 months after I joined the Institute here. So I was lucky enough to be able to visit Sri Lanka in February 2020. So at least I was able to do that. But clearly, following those months, the world has turned into a completely different place. But it's good to be traveling again. Much of my role as Senior International Business Development Manager is to engage with students who are pursuing ICAEW qualifications, to talk to potential students who want to become an ICAEW student or member. I also speak regularly to employers about how they can introduce different ICAEW schemes as well. So a very broad scope across not just Sri Lanka, but South Asia as a whole territory. So what are we going to talk about today? So I'll give you a very brief introduction to the ICAEW. We'll talk about some of the benefits that being an ICAEW member can bring you. I'm not going to talk too much about that though, because I think it's better to hear it from Kamidu, because Kamidu is quite literally getting those benefits as an ICAEW member, a Sri Lankan ICAEW member. So I'm sure he'll be telling you a lot about that and about how he became a member with ICAEW as well. But I will be telling you and talking to you about the joint student and membership scheme, which is an exciting route now, and it's an exciting opportunity for aspiring chartered accountants in Sri Lanka. And it's a route for you to become a member of both of our institutes. So I'll be talking to you in great detail about the membership, the dual membership. I'll also give you some information about our exams and how that process works, as well as talk to you about costs attached to joining us via this scheme. And then we'll have an opportunity, as I say, to hear from Kamidu at the end. So following that, we'd love to hear your questions if you have any. So please do think of some questions that you might want to ask if they don't come up in this presentation. So an introduction to ICAEW. So we are the oldest accountancy professional body, founded in 1880. So we were the very first accountancy body. We are a world leader within the accountancy, finance and business profession. The founders of the big 4 audit firms and accountancy firms were actually early ICAEW presidents. So the likes of PwC, so Mr. Waterhouse from the W from PwC, and Mr. Young from Ernst & Young, I believe, were ICAEW members from the start and were early presidents. So ICAEW has been a big part of the chartered accountancy profession from day one, which gives us that kind of reputation and that prestige as the most historic and oldest accountancy firm, accountancy body in the profession. So we are headquartered in London. You will see a picture there. I was happy to show Kamidu around Chartered Accountants Hall not too long ago. So we're always keen to welcome ICAEW members to Chartered Accountants Hall in London. So please do pay us a visit one day. We train and we support business leaders across all different sectors. So I think it's really important to point out that it's not just about working in audit necessarily. Clearly, we set people up to work in audit. That's a big part of what we do. But we do have lots and lots of ICAEW members who are working all across different sectors in commercial businesses as well. So they could be CFOs, they could be CEOs, they can be COOs, and across all different types of businesses, from banking to commercial, retail, wherever you want to be. Our qualification is recognised in the UK as a master's degree, and we're all about skills-based and practical application within our education process. So it's all about how you apply your skills as a chartered accountant, not just about your technical understanding. So we'll talk about that in a bit more detail. And what ICAEW's core vision is about enabling a world of sustainable and strong economies, which we'll talk about more later. So one of the key reasons ICAEW is sought after or popular around the world is because it does give chartered accountants a global recognition or a global reach. So we do have regional offices based in various cities around the world that you'll see there. And whilst we don't have a regional office here in South Asia, that's managed from London by myself. So I oversee all of ICAEW's operations across the South Asian region. We don't have an office here, but yet we do still support students and businesses in very similar ways. So ultimately across the world, we have 160,000 ICAEW chartered accountants across 150 countries. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea as to the networks that you would be a part of if you were to become an ICAEW member. We have around 30,000 students studying ICAEW at any one time. And we work with 7,000 employers who are authorized to offer ICAEW training. So that's just a very small section of employers that we actually work with, because that's 7,000 that are firms and businesses that are authorized to offer the training. Actually, there are thousands more employers around the world that recognize ICAEW skills, and they recognize the knowledge and they recognize what an ICAEW member can bring to their business. So whether they're even if they're not offering the training for students to get the training, they still recognize what an ICAEW member can do for them because they know about ICAEW. So that's across countries, obviously in the UK, in England and Wales, where we're extremely recognized and one of, or the most recognized, but also across places like Canada. We have good recognition for ICAEW, the Middle East, Australia as well. So there's lots of places where ICAEW is recognized within businesses. And it's truly that global designation that ICAEW's ACA would give you. So I mentioned earlier, one of ICAEW's core values is to enable a world of strong and sustainable economies. So we see that by collaborating with professional and national bodies such as CA Sri Lanka, that's a much better way to strengthen the accountancy profession by collaborating and using our knowledge from England and Wales and accompanying that with the CA Sri Lanka local market knowledge. We see that by working together, we can make a better profession and make a better world actually for good. So it's very much a big focus for ICAEW to collaborate with professional bodies for the ultimate benefit of the profession and globally through meeting sustainability goals and things of that nature. So we have a long history of working or collaborating here in Sri Lanka. So going actually even further beyond 1995, we've always had very healthy, positive relationships with the Institute here in Sri Lanka. But over the years, we've had various agreements where we recognize each other's qualifications, we share advice on changes that we're making to syllabus to ensure that what's covered in the education process to train chartered accountants, we need to make sure that that stays up to date and that is relevant for the world that everyone is working and living in now. So over the years, to ensure our qualification doesn't become out of date, we share expertise with CA Sri Lanka, so our syllabus can always remain level and on par with each other. In 2017, we introduced CA Sri Lanka as a pathways eligible body. Now, pathways is one of the routes that Lakmini mentioned earlier on in the introduction. So that is the route where more senior members, so anyone with 5+ years, can actually join ICAEW via the pathways route. So potentially there are some people on the call on the session today that could be applicable for. But we're not going into too much detail about pathways today. We're here to talk about the joint student and membership scheme. So this is super exciting for us at ICAEW. And I guess the reason we talk about some of the history that there is between our institutes is that it's all been a journey about getting to where we are with this joint membership scheme. So this is a scheme that is exclusive for Sri Lanka. The things that we say about collaborating with national institutes, we do that at ICAEW, we do that across the world. So we work closely with many institutes in many countries, and we have many different types of agreements for membership, for students. But this joint student and membership scheme that we have in place between ICAEW and CA Sri Lanka is one of a kind, and it's exclusive as an opportunity for Sri Lankan students. So we hope that you see that as a good opportunity to utilize the things that are available to you. So as I mentioned, I won't go too deep into what benefits there are, but essentially there are 4 main benefits that we think are very relevant. And that is the career support and the development that ICAEW gives you once you qualify as a member. So we don't just bring you in as an ICAEW member and then leave you to your own devices. We help you to develop further throughout your career, to help you get new skills, to help you continue to understand the changing world of accountancy. So we provide through our membership base various resources and various ways for you to keep your skills up to date. We provide that through information services, and we also offer technical advice for people working as a chartered accountant. Perhaps one day you will run your own practice and you need some advice from ICAEW. We can support you with that. We have member groups and networking opportunities. So I've mentioned the network of 160,000 ICAEW chartered accountants. We have different groups split across all of those. We have groups within different countries where ICAEW is present, where members will set up and organize events and technical updates and fun events and ways for people to engage with ICAEW that way. But I think ultimately one of the biggest points for ICAEW as well is the global reach and the global influence that ICAEW has in many countries. As I mentioned, 150 countries have an ICAEW member present there. So I'll move through these slides a bit quickly because we've discussed most of it. So we've talked about faculties. We've talked about the resources that are available for members. So regardless of what area that you're working in as an ICAEW member, there'll be a faculty for you to join to ensure that the information you're receiving and the skills that you're developing are relevant to you in your job. So these are all kind of services and resources that CA Sri Lanka will provide you through their own membership. But by being a member of both, you've got a whole new and a much bigger, you've got twice the library of resources for you to tap into and be able to utilize. So we hope you see that as a huge benefit. We have many questions, and I think there's already one popped up in the chat box about working in the UK. Now, since Brexit, it's actually quite straightforward now to get a visa to work in the UK. I'm sure Kamidu can vouch for that himself, given he's working for EY in London. But because we've moved to a points-based immigration system, it means that any profession where there is demand, and chartered accountancy, there is demand in the UK, it means that if an ICAEW member from outside the UK is given or is offered a job opportunity from a registered employer in the UK, then they'll be able to get their visa and move and work in the UK. We provide a whole host of help on that. So we've got contact members in different regional societies and regional groups here in the UK, depending on where you wanted to work. So we have members based in different parts of the country. We have advice on how to obtain practicing certificate and getting audit qualifications. If you wanted to one day be able to sign off audit and get audit rights here in the UK, we can help you to do that. We have an ICAEW jobs page, which is essentially a jobs portal where employers post job opportunities and positions that they have, and that portal is accessible for ICAEW members. So we're very active in that space to help people navigate the networks that are available to them. So how do you get to become an ICAEW member? I'm sure you're wondering. So that route to dual membership, you'll see on screen, there is the pathway, essentially, the route that you would need to take in order to qualify as a dual member. So I appreciate there'll be people from different, at different stages of this map on the call this evening. But essentially, this shows you the whole map. So you could potentially come out of your A levels and go into the business level 1, complete business level 1, complete business level 2, complete business, complete corporate level. Once you've completed the corporate level, that's when you would be eligible to sign up for ICAEW's exams. Now, after you move into the next stage, you do have to complete 5 more exams after you've completed corporate level. So you'll all know that at strategic level, there are 4 exams and a case study, so 5 in total. Now, what you must, if you want, what you can do, if you have a choice, you can sit 2 exams at strategic level. So you could sit SL2 and SL3, and you can sit the entire strategic level if you want. And if you want to progress to be just a CA Sri Lanka member, you can go down that route, and that is the traditional route, the route that already existed. Or what you could do instead is sit SL2, SL3, and instead of doing the final 3 strategic level exams, you can replace them with the ICAEW advanced level, of which there are 3 exams as well. So you don't need to do any additional exams because the ICAEW exams will replace the CA Sri Lanka exams. So you'll note that at our advanced level, there are 3 exams, 1 in corporate reporting, 1 strategic business management, and then the case study exam at the end. So they quite literally, if you wanted to take this route, would replace the final 3 CA Sri Lanka exams. So what ICAEW has also done as part of this agreement is recognize the practical training that's required in order to qualify as a chartered accountant in Sri Lanka. So we've reviewed the process that you will. I think I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yep.
We've had a power outage, I think. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you well, Dan.
You can hear me now?
Now we can hear.
Great. Sorry for the disturbance. Let me share my screen again. And you can hear me. Good. Sorry for the disturbance. So where were we? Training. So we've recognized the training program that you all have to go through to qualify with CA Sri Lanka. So there's no additional training either. So as long as you've completed your training, as long as you've sat all of your exams, and once you've completed 2 of the strategic level exams and 3 ICAEW exams, that's when you would be eligible to join as a dual member. As you'd also need to do a ethics module, complete an ethics program, which is done offline. Well, it's an online program, but you would do that separately to your training and to your exams. So that's essentially just a bit of a map, if you like, of how you can obtain dual membership, and I hope that makes sense. So just to kind of sum up that in a different way and looking at a slightly different diagram or a different image. So there are 4 key elements to qualify as a dual member. There's the practical work experience and the professional development requirement. Now, as we've mentioned, that's covered completely by CA Sri Lanka. So ICAEW plays no part in that whatsoever. That's already handled through your CA Sri Lanka agreements. There are the subjects and the exams that you need to complete. That's a mixture of both, as we've said. You need to do business level, corporate level, 2 exams at strategic level, and then 3 ICAEW exams. And then there's the ethics and professional skepticism program, which is purely owned and handled by ICAEW. That's done through our website and through your student login. So I think it's important, even though you would get exemptions from most of the ICAEW qualification, because clearly the syllabus is very closely aligned to CA Sri Lanka, I think it's important to show you what the full ICAEW ACA qualification looks like. So you'll see that the certificate and the professional level exams, that's where you would get your credit for prior learning or exemptions. And it's those 3 advanced level exams that would need to be completed in order to qualify with ICAEW as well. Some of you potentially will be on the 2015 syllabus, some will be on the 2020. So this slide might be helpful for us to return to if there's any questions for that at the end. We've also discussed the ethics learning program. So why is ethics important? You know, we talked at the beginning about working with national bodies to increase the trust in the profession. Ethics and trust, they underpin everything that finance professionals do on a daily basis. So no matter what route you're joining ICAEW, there's always some form of ethics program or consideration that you have to go through, which is hugely important to our membership. So for this program, there are practical modules. It's all online. There are interactive videos that you need to watch. It's all very straightforward for you to do in your own time. And there's a short assessment at the end. So in terms of costs and the exams themselves, so all of ICAEW's advanced level exams are computer-based. So everything is done via an exam software that we use. All of our exams will test your integration of skills and how you're applying your skills. Our exams are open book, so we're not testing you on your technical understanding of accounting practices and procedures and standards. It's about how you apply yourself in the exam software that's used. So I think Kamidu will be talking about that quite a lot, considering he's come through these exams and he can talk firsthand about how the exams are structured. Exams can be sat either at an exam center here in Colombo, or you can sit via remote invigilation, which is a new way of sitting exams, which is much more accessible. You can sit them from home, from work, or anywhere where you've got a good internet connection and a private setting. There are 2 windows in the year that you can sit ICAEW advanced level exams in July and November. So if you are eligible now, it would be the perfect time to start considering preparation for that July exam coming up. The fees, the student registration fee is waived. So it's free of charge for students that are joining this scheme. So usually students would have to pay an annual fee of £180, but if you wanted to join via this scheme, that's free of charge. Your exemption fee or your credit for prior learning, you wouldn't have to pay for that either. So that's also been waived for students joining this scheme. The only investment from your side to ICAEW directly would be the exam costs, which you'll see on screen. There are £617 in total for all 3 exams. And to prepare for your exams, we recommend that you sign up with a tuition provider. We have a full list of online learning providers on our website, but we do work very closely with online providers such as BPP and Kaplan, who offer online learning solutions and ways for you to study practically and a bit more in your own time, because it's all online, so you can access that on demand. But we do also work with Mercury Institute, who are based here in Colombo, who are also registered with ICAEW as a partner in learning. Once you register with ICAEW, you need that registration in place in order to be able to access all of the things that we've discussed. So you need to be registered to be able to book your exam. You need to be registered to access the question banks, the mock tests, as well as preparing yourself on the exam software that's available. So because it's all on computer, we recommend that you do that preparation well in advance of your exam, so that you're fully prepared on what the software looks like on your computer, so you can take practice tests to ensure that you're familiar with that software for when it comes up to exam day. It might be worth noting as well that your tuition provider will support you even further, potentially with even more mock questions and mock exams. So another good reason to sign up to a tuition provider. ICAEW's we don't print textbooks anymore. So we've done away with hard copy textbooks. Everything is now digital, but it's a very sophisticated digital textbook. It talks to the software, the exam software that we use. So on exam day, it's really simple for you to switch between your digital textbook, which you're allowed to use in your exam because it's open book. You can switch between that quite easily and the exam software that you'll be writing your exam in. So in terms of your investment, you know, there is an investment that you must make if you want to become an ICAEW member and join this scheme. But we hope that you see that as a small investment in the bigger picture that can ultimately give you those global opportunities that can help you progress in your career, whether that is in Sri Lanka and engaging with the global audience from Sri Lanka, or if that's physically migrating to another country and working in another country and at another business. So we hope that you see that as a worthwhile investment. Again, I'm sure Kamidu can provide some comments on that when he speaks. Tuition costs are set by the tuition provider. So that is a fee that's not directly to the ICAEW. And so that can vary depending on who you choose. But one of the most important fees, potentially, is your ongoing membership fee. So once you qualify as a member of CA Sri Lanka or ICAEW, or in this case, both, clearly you would have to pay a membership fee to be able to access the resources that are available throughout your career and throughout your whole time in your career. Now, what we've actually done is combined that fee. So you would pay a one-off fee annually, sorry, you should pay one combined fee, I should say, annually of £200, but that gives you the membership of both CA Sri Lanka and ICAEW. Now, just to put that into some context, that from an ICAEW point of view is heavily reduced from the usual fee that people in the UK or anywhere else in the world would pay. So that's usually around £400, in fact, for just the ICAEW membership. But for students that are qualifying in this joint scheme here in Sri Lanka, you'll see that that's just £200, and it gives you access to both membership bodies. So to sum up, it's all about that local and global recognition. There's no additional training requirement. There's no additional exams. You'd be joining a network of 160,000 chartered accountants in 150 countries. There's affordable resources and affordable tuition now for students in Sri Lanka. And there's a one reduced rate membership fee for you throughout your career with ICAEW and CA Sri Lanka. And if it is something that you're keen on doing, you can sign up as a student now. You can register with us by completing a very simple form. Once you've completed corporate level and the 2 strategic level exams, you can apply for your exemptions and your CPL, and you can then start preparing for your ICAEW exams by finding a tuition provider. So I hope you found that useful. I'm really looking forward to hearing some questions, if you have any, about this scheme and how it might benefit you, or just generally questions about what you need to do to get started. So please do think about what you might want to ask. But without further ado, I think I'll pass you over to Kamidu now, who can tell you much better than I can exactly what it's like to sit ICAEW exams and what it's like to be a member coming from Sri Lanka. So thanks very much for listening. Over to you, Kamidu.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Dan. First of all, I trust you are doing well and staying safe. And when I see this audience, I feel energetic and enthusiastic to share my thoughts. Indeed, I personally believe that CA has enlightened my life throughout my career. Because I believe, coming from a typical middle-class family from Sri Lanka, to achieve these heights in my life, CA was instrumental. CA, the knowledge and the experience which I gained and gauged from CA was exceptional, and it's outstanding. So it's quite, it's my pleasure to speak to you, because you are the young blood and next generation of this profession. And during the coming few minutes, I will explain my experience along with how best this qualification can enlighten your career. First of all, the chartered accountancy achieving the chartered accountancy title is not a path that filled with blossoms and fragrance. It's a challenging journey. But of course, if we find correct alternatives and if we plan it accordingly, it will be quite effective and easy for us to achieve our ultimate goal of being a chartered accountant. And I believe you might have already done a research about the ICAEW, and Daniel also explained some background about the ICAEW and its benefit. And believe me, getting the ICAEW qualification opens vast of opportunities. Number of opportunities. It could be in the job market, it could be in the higher education, and they provide personal and professional development into your career. So for an example, if I explain my story, I'm originally from Sri Lanka and grew up in Colombo, and I completed chartered accountancy. And once I completed my chartered accountancy, I was looking for the foreign opportunities, and then I came across an opportunity in Malta. So I joined with KPMG in Malta, and I served there for 2.5 years. While I'm working in KPMG Malta, I wanted to gain this ICAEW qualification, and I studied for it. Then eventually, once I get this qualification, I saw there's a huge increase in the job opportunities that I get. For an example, I was offered with one of the largest reinsurer in Switzerland, and I was offered with one of the audit firm, the headquarters in Netherlands, and one of audit firm in Ireland, and finally the opportunity which I chose, which was the Ernst & Young in London. It opened a number of opportunities, and it was quite difficult even for me to pick an opportunity because some of these employers are specifically looking for ICAEW members. And indeed, it opened a quite number of opportunities. I can share it from my personal experience. Not only in the Europe, but also in other number of territories, ICAEW, the qualification is quite prestigious. For an example, Middle East, it could be in Asia, Asia Pacific. It opens a number of vast, a world of opportunities. Not only the job market, but also if you have an interest to go for further education, or if you would like to do an MBA in UK, if you have this ICAEW qualification, you can get number of exemption for these MBA program, for academic program. And finally, if you would like to sign an audit report in UK, this is the must qualification. This is the UK professional body, and they involves in number of regulatory activities in the profession itself. And in addition to that, once you become ICAEW member, there are member benefits as well. You can join for different communities in UK, and there are a number of service industry related workshops where you can join and where you can gain more experience over speaking to diversified people from these different groups. And in that case, I consider yourself as fortunate because now CA Sri Lanka, the prominent accounting body in Sri Lanka, has opened a golden opportunity for you. Because as Ms. Lakmini rightly explained, there are 3 pathways that you can enroll for the ICAEW membership. So the first pathway is studying simultaneously 3 subjects in ICAEW and CA Sri Lanka. And the second pathway would be the top-up pathway, whereas once if you are a member of CA Sri Lanka, then you can consider to do additional 3 subjects in chartered accountancy, where I followed this second pathway and then become the member of ICAEW. The third and last would be the if you are a member of CA Sri Lanka already and have 5 years of post-qualified experience, then you can directly apply for the membership after having an interview and submitting an assessment. In that case, I followed the second opportunity. And at that time, when I was a student of CA Sri Lanka, we haven't came across the first pathway, which is the simultaneous study. So in that case, you don't need to do CA Sri Lanka subject separately and ICAEW subject separately. Now you can study ICAEW subjects and get the membership both of these prestige organizations, which is quite amazing. And I personally believe this opportunity has given only for selected group of countries only, because it shows the quality of the accounting body and the quality of the products outputs made by CA Sri Lanka. And we should really proud about this opportunity. And in that case, in my coming few minutes, I would like to focus on the exam perspective from my personal experience to suspend disbeliefs about ICAEW examination culture. So as I could explain to you, I followed the top-up pathway, whereas I studied all of these 3 subjects. So even if you are following first pathway or second pathway, these points are completely relevant for you, because these points are related to the completing remaining 3 subjects in the ICAEW curriculum. So the first one, which is a quite common disbelief, when it comes to a global qualification, we tend to believe that English would be a barrier, our language would be a barrier, but it's not the case. I can guarantee on that, because this is a qualification, as Daniel rightly mentioned, to assess your technical experience, technical knowledge, and the application of the technical knowledge. So if you could rightly understand the technical concept and put it in the practical sense into the exam paper, that matters the most. So I'm not saying that English, the proficiency in English does not matter in your career, it matters to your career. But to complete the ICAEW exams, it's not the essential thing. Your technical skills and the application of the technical skills come first. So in that case, it's a disbelief that English would really matter to your career. For an example, I've been working in foreign companies for now more than 5 years. So what the main thing which I realized working with different diversified people across the different countries from the world is people respect for your knowledge, not for the way that you speak or the way that you put your thoughts, because at the end, the knowledge and the wisdom, it matters rather than your ability to speak a non-native language. At the end, it's a non-native language for us. So I suspend the disbeliefs of English would be a barrier to complete this exam. And moving on to the second point, computer-based software. Again, we might have a disbelief that computer-based software might be a challenge for us. In that case also, I personally believe computer-based software would bring more efficiencies to exam. And I'm quite happy to hear that CA Sri Lanka has also moved to these computer-based softwares, because that's the future. Eventually, we need to get away from this current examination method and move into the computer-based softwares. And the computer-based software provides benefits. How it provides benefit? Once you become a student of the ICAEW, you will get the access to the question bank, whereas you can practice questions in actual software itself. So you can understand where the tools are. You can actually experience the software before you actually go into the exam, which is quite amazing. And then once you write your answer, you can of course compare your answers, because you can export your answers into Excel sheet, and it really helps. And indeed, as we have a sophisticated study material, you can open your study material along with the paper and indeed question paper when you're writing your exam. So for an example, in my case, as I practice a lot using this practical software, I tend to copy paste certain extract from the paper to my answer, because it helps for me to save time. For an example, rather than giving an introduction for the question, I tend to copy paste certain aspect from the paper itself and put it in the my answer sheet and alter it so I can save more time. And it really helped and it worked, and eventually it saves a substantial amount of time. That's why I told this computer-based software bring more efficiencies to the real exam experience. Third point would be the cost. I appreciate the fact that it could be relatively expensive, but as Daniel explained, anything you incur on education, I personally believe it's an investment, because you have inaccessible opportunity to earn the investment which you have incurred on this exam. For an example, being honest with you, Ms. Lakmini showed that it would cost around somewhere around 360 rupees, 360,000 rupees. And in my personal experience, if you get a job in United Kingdom, I believe you can earn it. The payback of your investment is nearly a week, 1.5 week. So that's why I'm telling it's relatively a minimal investment compared to your earning potential. So don't think about the cost in a negative way, because it brings a vast opportunities in your career. Eventually, you would earn. The payback is a relatively smaller period of time. And moving on to the fourth fact, the exams of ICAEW are well structured. That's something which I appreciate in ICAEW exam setting, because for an example, if you go into a paper and there are specific number of questions, there will be only 3 questions, and the type of the questions are uniform from past paper to past paper. You can understand, for an example, there is a memo, and then after that memo, you have 2 exhibits, and you can easily understand it because it follows the same pattern of the paper. And once you go into the exam, you don't get any surprises because it follows the same pattern, and the exam papers are well structured. In that case, it really helps for you to go through these exams. And being open with you, if you simply Google the pass rate of the corporate reporting and strategic business management and case study, which are the 3 subjects that you need to do, just check the pass rates of ICAEW, and you would wonder, because I just checked corporate reporting, it's 80% of pass rate, and SBM it's 88%. Case study, it's nearly 70%. So that means it's a relatively higher pass rate. If you consider it with CA Sri Lanka, it's far ahead of pass rate, which shows that it's not a tough exam. It's not a complicated exam. It's just matter the preparation and facing to the exam with the confidence. And final point, and my but it's last, but it's not the least one, it's an open book exam. So even you can bring your study text in a way that you can open the study text as well during the exam, and you can bring any material, any short notes for the exams. So literally you have everything you want during the exam. And why it would be hard? Because if you need to bring notes, if you need to bring your study material, everything is there. So it's completely open book exam. And the best thing of this exam is it's designed to assess your application rather than your technical knowledge by heart, but it designed to assess your application of the technical aspect. So that's why it's open book, but it's a good opportunity to grab, because you have all the resources around you. It's just a matter of arranging those resources and putting your answer in a more structured manner. And those are the points and disbeliefs which I wanted to suspend. I believe our success on that. And I also would like to delve into details about the individual 3 subjects, and I hope it would also help for you. In the first pathway and second pathway, you have to do 3 subjects. We discuss it, and it's the corporate reporting, strategic business management, and case study. And believe me, for the corporate reporting and strategic business management, it's relatively straightforward. We have studied corporate reporting in many of CA curriculum pillars, and we have a good background of the knowledge. It's the subject is this particular subject is similar to the subject we have in the CA Sri Lanka curriculum as corporate reporting. It includes consolidation, it includes some part of auditing, it includes some part of corporate governance. It's relatively similar, and the exam structure is quite predictable, as I mentioned earlier, and it's quite straightforward in ICAEW. So attending to the strategy, corporate risk, corporate reporting, and strategic business management should be a relatively straightforward task. And in that case, if you would need to consider the tuition for these exams, and if you need to go for UK based tuition, I think it should be relatively expensive for you. But these 2 subjects, as I mentioned earlier, as you have preliminary understanding of these subjects, you can also consider self-studies, where I followed the self-study because the knowledge I got from the CA Sri Lanka was prominent, and I could easily replicate this knowledge into the ICAEW subject. And also you have another option. You can consider Sri Lanka-based tuition provider. I believe there are a number of Sri Lanka-based tuition providers, and indeed, you can go for a tuition provider who provides the same subjects in CA Sri Lanka, because these subjects are completely similar in nature. So first of all, you can compare those 2 curriculums and take your own decision. And this goes to the corporate reporting and strategic business management. And finally, moving on to the case study, this is where I find it a bit interesting, because let me share my honest experience. So first of all, I took the case study paper just to see how I feel about this. I was surprised that because this paper seems to be relatively straightforward, and it's quite easy paper. For an example, the first question is to perform a ratio analysis. The second question is to perform a market analysis. For an example, a competitor or product drop off or something related to a market analysis. And third one is macroeconomic analysis of a case study. And the case study we received in advance, and based on that, you have to write these 3 answers. And if you go through 5-6 past papers, it's the same type of 3 questions that they would repeat in all the papers. So I believe, frankly, this is the most easiest exam in the ICAEW curriculum. But I failed it twice, because that's a mistake that I did. The purpose of this paper is to see how proficient producing a report. So it gives you 4 hours to write a report. So when you write this report, there are some elements that you need to be ensure, and your answer need to be aligned to the marking scheme. So in that case, the writing style, you have to practice a lot and compare it to the marking scheme to ensure that you have addressed all the key points in the marking scheme. So that's where I got wrong. But in the third time, I make it right and went through the exam. And once I understood my mistake, it was relatively straightforward to go through with this exam. So that's a key point for you to take away when you actually do this case study exam. For this exam, I went to a UK-based tuitioner just to get some understanding about this subject. But for the remaining 2, I did it self-study. And so this is the pretty much about the 3 separate subjects in the ICAEW. And finally, what I wanted to highlight is getting into this qualification opened me vast variety of opportunities. For an example, even when I go for a interview, as I have dual qualification, I can easily show that I'm capable of. And as I'm based in UK, definitely for UK to progress with the career, I think ICAEW plays a vital role because majority of recruiters are looking for ICAEW qualification as I'm based in UK. But even not in UK, but even in the outside UK, it's widely recognized. And there are a number of professional bodies who provide number of exemptions to the ICAEW qualification. And the employability ability increases vastly because of this ICAEW qualification. And I could feel that, for an example, there are a number of LinkedIn messages that I get from different recruiters, and I believe my success is at least partly due for both the supports and the wisdom which I got from CA Sri Lanka and ICAEW. And it also enhanced my soft skills as well. For an example, throughout the CA Sri Lanka curriculum, in addition to the technical skills, I also got exposure in IT skills, English skills, and even in ICAEW, as we are working in computer-based software, it enhanced the IT skills and the public, in the sense, using the correct English proficiency. It helped in that aspect as well. So it provides a vast variety of benefits. And my humble request is for you to do your own research about this qualification and this pathway, and feel free to get in touch with Ms. Lakmini and Daniel to clarify if you have any further queries, because this is a golden opportunity which you have to keep your eye on. At our time, we haven't had this opportunity, but now you have it. So my request is, do your own research, clarify your queries, and take a step forward. And I look forward to see you as a member of ICAEW and CA Sri Lanka. Thank you. Back to you. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
To Mr. Daniel Westley, who actually shared his valuable information, and for that inspiring thoughts by Mr. Kamidu Ravindra, who actually walked the talk. I think both of them deserves a huge round of applause. And I think it's now time to give back controls once again to Ms. Lakmini to share and sum up the thoughts shared by Mr. Daniel and Mr. Kamidu. Ms. Lakmini, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Inshaf. Thank you, Daniel and Kamidu. So, Mama product make a explain karana. Kamidu help me if I miss anything. Daniel explain kare basically. Daniel Kamidu, both of them explain kare. ICAEW saha me prestige accounting bodies deka එකතු වෙලා collaboratively ඔයාලට දෙන අවස්ථාවන්. එතකොට members ලට වගේම students ලට මේ ICAEW කියන prestige accounting organisation එකේ accounting body එකේ membership එක සහ national body එක CA Sri Lanka membership එක ලබා ගන්න තියෙන pathways තමයි කතා කරේ. එතනදී ඩැනියල් මුලින්ම විස්තර කරා වගේ ICAEW කියන්නේ ලොකු member base එකක් තියෙන, student base එකක් තියෙන oldestම professional body එකක්. ඒ වගේම ICAEW එකෙන් ඔයාලට ලැබෙන benefits කමිදු වගේම ඩැනියල් explain කරා. එතකොට මෙතනදී එතකොට job market එක අපි දැක්ක ගොඩක් questions උත් අහලා තිනවා. කමිදුත් කිව්වා වගේ ඕගලන් ගොඩාක් දුරට දැන් අපි සාමාන්‍ය දැන් තියෙන pounds acceleration එකත් එක්ක බලද්දී අපිට ඒත් එක්කත් ගොඩාක් දුරට 4 lakhs වගේ ප්‍රමාණයකින් ඕගලන්ට මේ වගේ prestige organizations professional bodies දෙකකින් membership එක ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේම ඒක කමිදු කිව්වා වගේ එක ලොකු investment එකක්. කමිදු ඩැනියල් කිව්වා වගේ ඒක ලොකු investment එකක්. මොකද ඔයාලට ඊට පස්සේ job market එකේ තියෙන opportunities දැන් කමිදුගේ experience එක share කරා. එතකොට කමිදුට ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන opportunities බැලුවාම එතකොට ජොබ් මාකට් එකේ ගොඩාක් ඔපචුනිටිස් ඕපන් අප් වෙලා තිනවා කමිදුට මේකත් එක්ක මේ ඒ වගේම කමිදු එක්ස්ප්ලেইন කරා වගේ එයාගේ ස්කිල් සෙට් එක එතකොට නොලෙජ් එක මේ හැම දෙයකම අප්ග්‍රේඩේෂන් එකට මේ බොඩිස් දෙකෙන්ම ලැබිච්ච ඒ ඉන්පුට් එක ගොඩාක් බලපාලා තිනවා. ඒ වගේම කමිදු සහ ඩැනියල් එක්ස්ප්ලেইন කරා වගේ මේ පාත්වේ එක ගත්තාම පළවෙනි පාත්වේ එක ඩුවල් මෙම්බර්ෂිප් ස්කීම් එක. ඒ කියන්නේ ICAEW CA ශ්‍රී ලංකා එකේ ඉන්න ස්ටුඩන්ට් කෙනෙක්ට රෙජිස්ටර්ඩ් ස්ටුඩන්ට් කෙනෙක් හෝ මෙම්බර් කෙනෙක් ඒ අයට මේ පාත්වේස් තුනෙන් පළවෙනි පාත්වේ එක තියෙනවා. ඒ පාත්වේ එකේදී තියෙන්නේ පැරලලි. ඕගලන්ට පැරලලි පුළුවන් මේ මෙම්බර්ෂිප් දෙකම ගන්න. එතකොට එතනදී කරන්න තියෙන්නේ ඩැනියල් බොහොම පැහැදිලිව එක්ස්ප්ලেইন කරා. එතනදී ඔයාලට කරන්න තියෙන්නේ ඔයාලා ඇවිල්ලා කම්ප්ලීට් කරලා තියෙනවා නම් කෝපරේට් ලෙවල් එකේ නොලෙජ් මොඩියුල්ස් ටික. එතනදී ඔයාලට පුළුවන් simultaneously කියන්නේ parallelly අපේ නොලෙජ් මොඩියුල්ස් කරන ගම අපේ ස්කිල් මොඩියුල්ස් ප්‍රැක්ටිකල් ට්‍රේනින් කරගෙන යන ගමන් ICAEW එකේ ඇඩ්වාන්ස් ලෙවල් එකේ මොඩියුල්ස් තුන කරගෙන යන්න. ඒ කියන්නේ කෝපරේට් රිපෝටින් එකයි ස්ට්‍රැටජික් බිස්නස් මැනේජ්මන්ට් එකයි කේස් ස්ටඩි එකයි. මේ ටික පැරලලි කරගෙන යන්න පුළුවන් ඕගොල්ලන්ට. පැරලලි කරන ගමන් ඔයාලට ඩුවල් මෙම්බර්ෂිප් එක ගන්නකොට අපි ස්ට්‍රැටජික් ලෙවල් එකට ආවම ස්ට්‍රැටජික් ලෙවල් එකේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ළමයි මොඩියුල් 5ක් කරන්න තියෙනවා. CS ස්ටුඩන්ට් කෙනෙකුට මොඩියුල් 5ක් කරන්න තියෙනවා කේස් ස්ටඩි එකත් එක්ක. එතකොට මේ මොඩියුල් 5න් අපි කිසිම ඇඩිෂනල් මොඩියුල් එකක් මේ ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එක හරහා ඔයගොල්ලන්ට ඇවිල්ලා නැහැ. ඔයගොල්ලෝ මොඩියුල් 3ක් ICAEW එකෙන් කරනවා, මොඩියුල් 2ක් CS ශ්‍රී ලංකා එකෙන් කරනවා. ඒකයි මේකේ තියෙන ඇඩ්වාන්ටේජ් එක. ඔයගලන්ට එක්ස්ට්‍රා මොඩියුල් එකක් ඇඩ් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ මොඩියුල්ස් 5න් මොඩියුල් 3ක් ඒ කියන්නේ මේ අපි CS ශ්‍රී ලංකා එකේ කරන මේ සිලබස් එක කමිදුත් ඒක මෙන්ෂන් කළා. CS ශ්‍රී ලංකා එකේ මේ කරන සිලබස් එක ICAEW එක රෙකග්නයිස් කරනවා වගේම ICAEW එක අපේ ප්‍රැක්ටිකල් ට්‍රේනින් වගේම ඒ මුළු සිලබස් එකේ රෙකග්නිෂන් එකත් එක්ක තමයි මේ වගේ හොඳ අවස්ථාවක් ඕගලන්ට ලැබිලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒක එක අවස්ථාවක්. අනිත් එක තමයි කමිදු ගත්ත පාත්වේ එක. මම හිතන්නේ මට වඩා හොඳට මේ පාත්වේ එක කමිදුට එක්ස්ප්ලেইন කරන්න පුළුවන් මේ සිංහලෙන් චුට්ටක්. Kamidu, if you don't mind, can you just brief the next two pathways little bit in Sinhala?
ඔව්. එතකොට මම තෝරගත්ත පාත් එක තමයි සෙකන්ඩ් පාත්වේ එක. ඒ කියන්නේ මම චාටඩ් කරලා ඉවර වෙනකොට මට තිබුණේ නෑ. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි චාටඩ් කරනකොට තිබුණේ නෑ ওই පළවෙනි පාත්වේ එක ඇවිල්ලා තිබුණේ නැහැ. ඒක හින්දා තමයි මම දෙවෙනි පාත් එක කරේ. එතකොට මම මෙම්බර් කෙනෙක් වුණා මුලින්ම CA ශ්‍රී ලංකා එකේ. ඊට පස්සේ මට ICAEW එකේ ඇඩිෂනල් 3 subjects කරන්න වුණා. ඊට පස්සේ තමයි මම ICAEW qualification එක ගත්තේ. හැබැයි මට තව ඔප්ෂන් එකක් තිබුණා. තව අවුරුදු 5ක් බලාගෙන ඉඳලා post qualification experience එක හම්බුනාම ICAEW එක ගන්න. ඒත් මම කල්පනා කරේ ඒ කියන්නේ මට ඉක්මනටම ICAEW qualification එක ගන්න ඕනේ හින්දා ඒකේ තියෙන benefits advantages හින්දා මම හිතුවා මට අවුරුදු 5ක් බලාගෙන ඉන්නවට වැඩිය දැම්ම කරන එක හොඳයි කියලා. එතකොට මම හිතනවා මම ගත්තේ හොඳ decision එකක් කියලා. මොකද අවුරුද්දක් වගේ කාලයක් ඇතුළත මට ICAEW ඉවර කරන්න පුළුවන් වුණා. ඒක තමයි ඔය දෙවෙනි පාත්වේ එක කියලා අපි කියන්නේ මේ top up පාත්වේ එක. ඇත්තටම මම කලින් කිව්වා වගේ exams අමාරු නැහැ. ඔයා member කෙනෙක් නම් CA ශ්‍රී ලංකා එකේ ඔයා exams දැනටම කරලා තියෙනවා නම් ඔයාට ලොකු advantage එකක් ඒක. මොකද මේ more or less similar exams. ඒක ඇත්තටම හොඳ point එකක්. ඔයාලට ඒ කියන්නේ ඔයාගේ knowledge එක easily transfer කරන්න පුළුවන් ICAEW එකේ exams වලට.
ඔව්. දැන් මම හිතන්නේ කමිදු හොඳ example එකක්. දැන් ගොඩක් අය හිතනවා මේ exams අමාරුයි. ඒ වගේම ICAEW එතකොට තමන්ගේ language එක බැරි එකක් කියලා. එතකොට ඒකට හොඳ උදාහරණයක් කමිදු කිව්වා මේ කොහොමද මේව මැනේජ් කරගත්තේ. ඒ වගේම අපේ CA ශ්‍රී ලංකා එකේ සිලබස් එක කෙරුවා නම් ඒ කියන්නේ CA ශ්‍රී ලංකා එකේ සිලබස් එකත් එක්ක ගත්තාම ටෙක්නිකල් ඇස්පෙක්ට් එකෙන් ගත්තාම ළමයිගේ නොලෙජ් එකෙන් ගොඩාක් දුරට කෝපරේට් රිපෝටින් and ස්ට්‍රැටජික් බිස්නස් මැනේජ්මන්ට් මොඩියුල් 2 ළමයෙකුට සෙල්ෆ් ස්ටඩි කරලා ලියන්න පුළුවන් තියෙනවා හොඳට prepare වුණොත් basicallyම අපි දකින දේ තමයි කමිදුත් කිව්වා වගේ මේකේ preparation එක. ඒ කියන්නේ අලුත් platform එකක්, exam platform එකක්, අලුත් structure එකක්, ඒ different platform එකට ඒ structure එකට ඔයගොල්ලෝ පුරුදු වෙනවා නම් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට පහසුවෙන්ම මේ exams කරගන්න පුළුවන්. ඉතින් මම හිතනවා ඔයගොල්ලන්ට ලොකු idea එකක් මේ අවබෝධයක් මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් ලැබෙන්න ඇති කියලා. I would like to thank Kamidu and Daniel. And now we would like to open up for the Q&A. So Inshaf, I hope if you can ask the questions where the students have asked.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ms. Lakshmi, for adding up and summing up the speeches of Mr. Daniel and Mr. Kamidu. So next up in line is to move into one of the most important element in our agenda, that is the Q&A sessions. We've been getting questions into our chat boxes popping up in bundles, and we've picked up important questions. I think the first question can be directed to Mr. Kamidu. Mr. Kamidu, this question was asked by Mr. Roshan. What opportunities do we have in the UK market after completing ICAEW and obtaining membership?
Yeah, indeed, that's a really good question. So as I mentioned, the prominent qualification in UK is the ICAEW. So ACA refers to the Associate Chartered Accountant in ICAEW. So once you have the ICAEW qualification, you can even consider for the opportunity both in England, Wales, and of course even in the Scotland, because Scotland there's a separate body, but getting the qualification in Scotland is also more or less similar if you have the ICAEW qualification. And indeed, the opportunities in the job market is countless, because if you have this ACA qualification, I've been approached by a number of recruiters in the LinkedIn. There will be quite number of opportunities, because indeed the market in UK is quite large, and as Dan rightly mentioned, because of the point-based skill migration system, there will be the process is quite easy for employers to sponsor for the right skill throughout the world. So you have that ability if you have the qualification to get into the UK, and the market in UK is quite immense. So for an example, I work in financial services industry. So this is the best place out of the world if you want to specialize in financial services, but not only in financial services, the other markets, energy market, private equity market, and the hospitality market. There are a number of markets which are booming and have number of opportunities for the prospective accountants. So I can guarantee that there will be vast variety of opportunities, and especially it's worth mentioning, it's not in UK, but there are a number of companies which are located outside the UK, which are like governed by UK bodies. So in that case, in entire Europe especially, ICAEW is well recognized, and including Middle East and Asia, the qualification weights a lot, and you have wide access to untapped market in the job market. Yep, I hope I answer your question in fast.
Thank you, Mr. Kamidu. I think, Mr. Roshan, that answered your question. I think the next question can be directed to Mr. Daniel. Mr. Daniel, this question is from Mr. Roshan. Could you please explain us on the top-up pathway?
Yes, thank you. So the top-up pathway. So I think Kamidu and Lakmini spoke about that. I think, didn't you briefly? So if that hasn't already been answered, essentially that top-up pathway is the route that Kamidu actually did. So that was the route that Kamidu came through. So prior to the launch of this joint student and membership scheme that we've been discussing today, the route in was via the top-up route, which meant it was slightly different. You would have to complete your training in Sri Lanka in the same way as you do with the joint scheme. You'd complete your training, you'd complete all of the CA Sri Lanka syllabus, and you would then go into CA Sri Lanka to become a member. Now, once you became a member of CA Sri Lanka, you could then register with the ICAEW. You would get 12 exemptions from our 15 exams. So you would get 12 exemptions. They are also free if you came through this route, so you wouldn't have to pay for your exemption fees. You would have to register with ICAEW as a student. There's a fee of £180 per year to do that. And you would just have to sit 3 exams with ICAEW. So you don't have to do any more training, but there is the additional 3 exams that you'd need to complete to top up to become ICAEW. So obviously that was the agreement that we had before the joint scheme. That was an agreement that was in place for about 5 or 6 years before, I mean, until now. It is still in place now, but it's just a slightly different route because there are additional exams. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. I hope, Mr. Roshan, that answered your question. I think the next question can be directed to both Mr. Daniel and Mr. Kamidu. The next question is from Mr. Mohammed Jifri. He's currently working in Oman, and his question is, how would his working experience in the Gulf country be more eligible and accepted in terms of ICAEW?
I'll take that, Kamidu, if that's okay. So it does depend. Sorry, I'm getting a bit of feedback and echo. That's better.
Yeah.
Thank you. So oh no, I'm still getting that. Sorry. Is someone on mute? Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll ignore it. So it does depend on the employer that you're studying at, actually. So you do need to complete your training at an authorized employer. So that employer needs to be authorized by CA Sri Lanka. So I mean, it's probably a question actually for CA Sri Lanka directly as to whether you can have your training supervised in another country. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure entirely if that is possible to complete your training. Lakmini, is that something you can talk on?
Yes, actually, if you are like located in Oman, the challenging part is the practical training for you, as well as like if you have completed all the required knowledge modules and the practical training requirement here, you may proceed with the ICAEW exams, but if still you have certain requirements to be completed here, especially the monitored training, I think it is a bit challengeable.
Thank you, panelists. I hope that answered your questions. The next question is directed to Mr. Daniel. If we want to do a master's or MSc in UK, will ICAEW provide us in getting in exemptions?
Potentially, yes. There are some universities. If I do a quick Google search, I can share the link with you. So there are some institutions, universities, where you can go even beyond your ICAEW qualification. So I can share that link in the chat box if you like. You know, it's not a popular, not that it's not popular, but it's not a common route, just purely because of the recognition that the ICAEW qualification carries anyway. So many people, once they qualify with ICAEW, don't necessarily need to get that master's, actually, because ICAEW is recognized as a master's here in the UK anyway. So, but I appreciate there is lots of desire for people to then want to progress and get more qualifications. So it is an option, but just, yeah, not super common. But I've just put a link in the in the chat box for you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. I think we found the link in the chat box. The next question is from Arshad Ahmed. And I think this question can be directed to Mr. Daniel as well. Is it possible to replace CA case study exams with ICAEW case study exams? Obtain exemptions, that is the pass-through.
So you, as a bare minimum, in order to qualify with ICAEW, you have to complete the ICAEW case study exam and the corporate reporting and the strategic business management. So you can replace the CA Sri Lanka versions of those exams with the ICAEW exams. You can do that, but you can't replace the ICAEW exams with the Sri Lankan equivalent, if that makes sense. I think I've understood that question, right?
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. I vouch it answered that question. And
Great.
this question is to Mr. Daniel again, from Roshan. Should we pay students renewal yearly if we repeat subjects?
Sorry, can you just repeat that? Sorry.
Sure. Should we pay students renewal yearly if we repeat subjects in ICAEW?
Yeah, okay. Yes, if you're joining via the top-up route, and you have, in that route, you do have to pay the £180 student fee. So yes, you would have to renew that. If you don't complete your 3 exams within that year period, within that January to December period, then you would have to renew that fee in January. However, if you're joining the joint scheme, that fee is waived anyway, and that fee will always be waived for your whole time as a student. So if you're coming via the top-up route, yes, you have to renew that fee. If you're coming via the dual membership scheme, then that fee is free anyway, and that is waived for as long as we have the agreement.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Daniel, for answering that question. I think we have a question from Ms. Shazmina. I think this question was actually answered in the previous sessions. Is the ICAEW qualification recognized in Germany?
German, Kamidu, you had what seems like job offers from every country across Europe at one point, so you answer that.
So in that case, in my understanding, ICAEW has different representatives throughout the European countries. So for an example, for majority of for almost all European countries, the qualification is well recognized. As I explained, there were opportunity came up from Switzerland who were looking for specifically ICAEW qualification. And I do appreciate the fact that Germany might have their own professional body, and they may give the priority for their profession, the people who are coming from their professional body when it comes with the, for an example, audit firm hierarchy. In order to be a partner, you might essentially need to get the professional body of Germany's qualification. In terms of the recognition, I personally believe ICAEW qualification it still holds a good strength even in Germany, if that makes sense.
It does, and just to kind of clarify that, you know, ICAEW, whilst in some countries it might not have the kind of government recognition per se, or it might not be recognized for exemptions, or it might not be recognized as a direct route into the professional body of that country. I think the thing to always remember is ICAEW is well known worldwide. So whilst there might not be direct routes to get audit rights necessarily, I think most employers within the profession would have heard of ICAEW, and they would recognize the skill, the skill set, the understanding, the knowledge that an ICAEW member would bring them, just purely because it's a global organization.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Daniel and Mr. Kamidu. That actually made sense for that answer. Next, we have a question from Ms. Nelmini. In terms of preparing for the third option, what are the learning materials which are available in addition to the materials which are available in the ICAEW website?
So that's very dependent on which tuition provider you choose. We're working hard to ensure that you do have a option here in Colombo if you prefer to actually go to a centre potentially and get that tuition face to face, if that's something that you want to do. But we do work very closely with Kaplan and BPP, who offer different products, different packages. So I would definitely explore both or all. If you're looking for online learning, especially, I would definitely explore both of those. As I say, we have Mercury Institute here in Colombo who can support as well. But they'll all offer different services essentially. So it's just down to personal preference. They're all very good. They're all to a very high standard because they've come through a vetting process with ICAEW to become a partner in learning. So they're all to a good standard. But it just is personal preference, to be honest.
Thank you.